Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm the Posh guy who likes wrestling. Welcome to episode 11 of my WWE analysis shows. We are in Wrestlemania season. Wrestlemania is this Sunday, and to be honest, the build-up's been shit. But anticipation for the event has doubled in the space of one announcement. Yes! Brock Lesnar has re-signed with the WWE. This is huge news for the main event. Now, suddenly, the possibility of a swerve is just that much bigger. Maybe Lesnar can retain and we can go on to something kind of like the era of Brock Lesnar. However, that's for another video. That's for my predictions video. Right now, we're talking about regrets. Regrets. I've got some. My parents have definitely got some. And indeed, the road to WrestleMania has been plagued with them. And what are they? Well, the card is fixed, the card is in place, and I'm going to be going through every match on the card and talking about all the biggest regrets in the build-up of each of those feuds. There's a lot of them. We're going to be here for some time. Number 1. Tyson Kidd and Cesaro versus The New Day versus Los Matadores versus the Usos. What? Seriously? What are The New Day and Los Matadores doing in this match? Basically, we've had no real build between any of these teams. Cesaro and Tyson Kidd are two incredibly gifted athletes, and they beat the Usos for the title at Fastlane. That means, well, we could have built simply a rivalry out of the Usos and Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. I mean, sure, their rivalry was getting a little bit stale due to an overexposure of singles matches between the guys on Raw and SmackDown. However, they could have made something of the fact. There was a little acorn of something happening between Natalya and Naomi. Natalya completed a heel turn on Naomi, so surely some sort of rivalry could have been forged out of that. However, no, the WWE instead decided to go for a crowded four corners tag team match. Now, this is probably to get as many wrestlers as they can on the card, and that's laudable in one sense, but it also means that there has been no story. Basically, the New Day have beaten Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, Los Matadores have beaten the Usos, there's generic squabbling between all of the guys, and so why not, we'll stick them all in the same match. Now, this makes no sense to me, because, well, first of all, they reformed the primetime players, and so surely there was a wave of welcome back momentum that they could have ridden. No, fuck those guys, they're in the Battle Royal. And second of all, they've been building up the Ascension. I mean, yes, they fucked up the Ascension's build, but, you know, as has been proven with NXT, these guys are capable of a long-term dominant heel run with the titles. However, no, fuck those guys, they're in the Battle Royal too. Without even being announced, they're just in there. Two tag teams, completely dead in the water, never mind. They would have made that match feel like it had a bit more star power in it, but instead we're left with Spirit Squad without the relevance, if you can befucking leave that, and also the guys who carry around a tiny little bull man. These are the tag teams that I don't tell my friends about, because if I did, they would laugh at the thing that I really, really like, and they would be right to do it. So the biggest regret is the whole thing. There's no heat between any of the teams. The only heat that has sort of come about between any of these teams has been between Natalya and El Torito, and neither of those guys are in the fucking match. Side note, how fucking insulting is it that when these guys do six-man tags, Tyson Kidd, Cesaro and Natalya versus El Torito and Los Matadores, how insulting is it that Natalya has to fight El Torito? I mean, that's fucking insulting, isn't it? Considering that Natalya is one of the most talented wrestlers, regardless of gender, on the roster, the fact that she has to fight against El Torito. So basically what that implies is, okay, we've got a level up here for the male wrestlers, and then down here, you got women and midgets. Oh, okay, that's fine. Despite the fact that these guys are incredibly talented, no, they have to fight each other, because, God, if women fought men, and if midgets fought men, no, sir. Fuck you, WWE. So yes, the tag team division is in a mess, but then what else is new? They formed two tag teams which, while they weren't hot, they had the potential to be hot in the Ascension and Primetime players, and basically the biggest regret is those guys are being, buried in a 30-man match, whilst New Day and Los Matadores, two lame vanilla gimmick teams, are getting the spotlight on the pre-show. Either way, what the fuck happened? Speaking of, the Battle Royal. This has had no build. Why? Well, possibly because after the huge win that Cesaro got at last year's WrestleMania, he floundered in the lower end of the mid-card for the better part of a year before finally getting some semblance of a career resurgence with Tyson Kidd. So yeah, Cesaro was supposed to be in line for a push. It never happened. So what is there to be excited about the winner of the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal? Probably nothing. Maybe the company will want to try harder in trying to establish a new up-and-coming mid-carder, trying to right the wrongs of last year, but there's still no reason to really be excited about it because no one seems to care about it. Even Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan has been on the Raw Go Home show, and whereas last year it was pretty much his entire job to plug the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. By the way, it's really hard to say Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal really quickly. So, well done me for that. No, this year around, Hulk Hogan's done knack all. Instead, all he's done is, pose with Snoop Dogg, who, by the way, has really thin arms. That's not got anything to do with anything. I just thought I'd mention it. Basically, they've tricked us into thinking there's a build for the match because the two favourites to win it, The Miz and Damien Mizdow, they've, had one of the best built feuds on the actual card itself. Seriously, the Miz and Mizdow feud is more organically built than Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. And these guys are in the Battle Royal, so everyone's assuming, oh, things are going to come to a head there. Oh, there's actually been a build for the Battle Royal. No, it's just that the Battle Royal is piggybacking off all the exposure that Damien Mizdow and The Miz are getting, which is a sad state of affairs, isn't it? I mean, you've got Ryback and you've got Sheamus, but Ryback's been doing nothing of note since Fastlane, or since the Survivor Series for that matter, to be honest. And Sheamus, well, we don't know when his return is going to be. If they had announced that Sheamus was returning specifically for the Battle Royal, then hey, maybe that might have raised the profile of the thing, but no. We don't know when. I mean, he's probably going to return for then and probably going to win it. But who cares? Just program it so that people have anticipation. And the only other person of note in the Battle Royal is Axelmania, who's a comedy jobber. Oh, and Kane and the Big Show? Because their squabbling's really fun. Moving on to a substantially more exciting crowded match, it's the IC title ladder match. Now, I'm finally fine with this match. It's actually got to a point where I'm legitimately excited to see what they do here, because they've been rumblings of a resurgence in the prestige of the IC title. First of all, Dolph Ziggler and Daniel Bryan are fighting for it, which give the title hella props. Second of all, there's been stuff like the Intercontinental Championship Roundtable on WWE.com, people talking about all the great history, all the fantastic matches, the workhorse title. It's been thrown around loads. Daniel Bryan says he wants to bring the title back to its original standing, the Mr. Perfect title, the Steamboat title, the Randy Savage title. And yes, that would be amazing. So our desire to see that happening, yeah, it's really risen, and all this focus on the title, it's been getting the most attention it has in years, which is fantastic. Of course, there are regrets to be had. There are always regrets to be had in this sorry excuse we call an existence. Obviously, it's why the hell did this have to happen in such a goofy way? Basically, if you weren't watching the build-up, the reason why all 7 of these guys are involved in the ladder match is because at one point or another, each of these men has tried to steal the title from Bad News Barrett. Not steal as in steal a victory, but literally grab the title and physically run off with it. Dean Ambrose stole the title, then R-Truth stole the title, then Stardust, then Luke Harper. Dolph Ziggler has had his turn with it. It's been compared to a Looney Tunes cartoon, and with good reason. First of all, R-Truth's been stuck like a fucking barnacle to the commentary team for about 2 weeks solid, which, without hyperbole, was the worst 2 weeks of not just mine, but everyone's life. It feels like the feud should have been accompanied by bonk sound effects and sort of wah, 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 every time Bad News Barrett got pinned clean, which is about 6 times in a row. Haha. Fuck yeah. Well, what I think should have happened is simple. We should have got to this point, but it should have been built on violence. This is wrestling. Basically, there should have been a #1 contenders match for the Intercontinental title, but that gets ruined when someone comes out and interrupts it saying, hey, what about me? So they tried for a triple threat the next week, but that gets ruined when 2 guys come up and say, hey, what about us? We want the Intercontinental title as well. Basically, every time they try and get a #1 contenders match going, it erupts into violent chaos. People get laid out. Every time there are people crawling out of the woodwork and enacting vicious and brutal vengeance for being ignored by the Intercontinental title hunt. All of this happening, by the way, without anybody on commentary. What then would have happened was that Bad News Barrett would have, he would have snapped and said, no one gets the title, and bullhammered anyone who walked past him backstage. He's starting to get a bit kind of crazy about, holding on to his title. And, every time, friends are turning against friends, tag teams are imploding, people are looking over their shoulders because everyone wants this Intercontinental title, and they're going to hurt each other to do it. So, of course, what else can be done? The Authority take the title away and say, hey, okay, we need to sort this shit out. We're hanging the title above the ring at WrestleMania, and if you want it, there's a ladder match for it. Now, you guys just chill the fuck out. Then we get the gauntlet matches, we get the tag matches, everyone fighting all the time. And we basically get to the same point, only without, R-Truth doing this. Yes, we essentially get to the same place, the same sort of clusterfuck booking that we have right now, but it's built on hunger, ambition, friends turning on each other, violence, people, casting their allegiances aside because they're greedy and they want to hold that gold because it means so much to them, not people nicking the title and scarpering. Oh, and speaking of regrets, why the fuck is Stardust in this match and Goldust in the Battle Royal? Seriously. The WWE does this all the time. They build up a story and then forget about it and think that no one cares. I think this is like, just as long as they go, no, we're not focused on that. And don't worry, neither are you. We're not invested, so obviously you can't be. What would that be like if that happened in literally any other medium? Imagine in Breaking Bad, in the middle of the last season, Walter White just goes, you know what? I don't feel like selling meth anymore. Skylar, we cool? And Skylar's like, yeah, we cool. Fuck that, right? So how is it the WWE think they can just abandon storylines and no one will care? Now, clearly the WWE lost faith in this feud based on this semi-abysmal showing they had at Fastlane, but that's not their fault. You threw the match together at the last minute. We didn't want to see it at Fastlane. We wanted to see it build for WrestleMania, and it also didn't help that the referee botched the 3 count. So yes, everyone was confused, but we would have gone with it if you'd have just done your fucking job and built the feud. We want to be invested. Wrestling fans don't go out of their way to not get invested in feuds, okay? We only don't when we have no reason to be. When you don't do your job, we can't get invested. We can't feign enthusiasm if you don't give us the building blocks to understand, oh, that's why he's turning against him. That's why this is happening. There's an escalation in violence. God, I really want to see these guys get their hands on each other. Do that, and we'll join you on the journey because we want to, because we want these guys to succeed. We like Cody. We like Goldust. We want it to happen, but no, you're kind of hiding them in 2 separate, incredibly crowded matches. Shame. For shame. Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins. They fucked this up and it was so simple. It was so simple. It's just revenge. That's so easy. Seth Rollins almost murdered Randy Orton and all it takes is Randy Orton coming back and saying, I'm going to fucking kill you, Seth Rollins. And that's it. That's all they needed to do, and then all they need to do is contrive ways for Randy Orton to not get his hands on Seth Rollins. And so the anticipation from getting his hands on Seth Rollins builds. It's so easy. And yet they made something so simple, so complicated by having Randy Orton sort of doing a half heel turn and then getting frustrated and then not, he's sort of causing Seth Rollins problems, but he's not meaning to, and he's in Seth Rollins' corner, he helps him, and then for some reason he then decides to murder Seth Rollins. So we already see the violent outcome. We see Randy Orton completely physically dominate Seth Rollins, which is all that the match would serve to accomplish. And then that's it. I mean, Rollins hasn't even gotten any offense in this feud. What they should have done is, yes, Randy Orton should have held off from getting his hands on Seth. That's fine. But you don't do that by switching his allegiance and basically butchering his face turn. What you do is you try and find ways to keep them apart. So Randy Orton has to go after anyone else, He murders Big Show. He murders Kane. Like J&J Security, he destroys those guys all the while, getting closer and closer to Seth Rollins. But every time Seth Rollins gets out of the way or sneaks up behind him and cracks him in the back of the head with a chair or something like that, every time Seth Rollins avoids getting his ass kicked. But instead now we've seen Seth Rollins get his ass kicked and Seth Rollins has done nothing to come back from that. I mean, if Seth Rollins, destroyed Randy Orton again, then maybe we would want to see them in a match. But what has Seth Rollins done in this feud? I mean, I guess he tricked Randy Orton 2 weeks ago on Raw because, he said to Randy Orton, hey, we're going to have a match. And Randy Orton's like, yeah, I know, it's going to be me against the entire Authority. So Seth Rollins went around and pretended to, break all ties with the Authority. So it looked like he was coming out alone, except, oh, no, he wasn't, because the Authority actually, they're coming out and helping him. But that's not a trick. Randy Orton accepted the match knowing he was going in against all 5 of the Authority members. He went in already saying, yeah, you're probably going to kick the shit out of me, but I'm coming anyway. So the trick did nothing. All it did was Seth Rollins got one over on us, the audience. So we're like, oh. It's not... Like, if Randy Orton had refused to accept the match because he's smart and he's like, no, fuck you. I mean, I'm not a coward, but I'm not going to put myself in a position where 5+ guys are going to be kicking the shit out of me. No, I'm not going to take your match. Then Seth Rollins went on and, broke ties with the Authority. Then Randy Orton sneaks up from behind and says, hey, by the way, I'll see you in the ring. You've got your match. And then Seth Rollins is like, ha, I fooled you into accepting a match and now we're going to kick the shit out of you. That's a trick. That makes sense. Whereas nothing else has happened and Randy Orton all he's done is humiliate Rollins at every turn. These guys are probably going to have a great match. But why are we interested? We've already seen the payoff. I can't believe they fucked up this feud. It's so, like, the first Raw after Fastlane, Orton was white hot. And now, the Bellas versus Paige and AJ. I cannot believe this isn't for the title. It makes no sense. The angle that they're going with is that Paige and AJ are finally teaming up to take down the evil empire of the Bella Twins. But that narrative just feels forced. It doesn't feel natural because first of all, we've not seen this huge stranglehold that the Bellas have over the Divas division. They're not coming out there and, doing 2-on-1 matches. They're not stripping people of their championship opportunities. Yeah, they're cheating, but all heels cheat. So they don't exactly have a stranglehold over the Divas division. Sure, they're overexposed because of Total Divas, but again, that hasn't been featured into the storyline that much. AJ's just come back. Her and Paige had a really weird and confusing rivalry. So it makes total sense for AJ, Paige, these girls really want the title, the Bellas really want to hold on to the title, just have a fatal 4-way for the fucking championship. But because there are stakes available, because Nikki's the champion, and they've chosen to not take full advantage of that, this match feels like an afterthought, and it'll probably be treated like the fans as such. I mean, come on, give the Divas a chance. Oh, and now AJ and Paige are sort of fighting again. So they've got their kind of confusing alliance going again. So that was good because, the frenemies angle really worked. Rusev versus Cena. Aha, finally, the best built match on the card. Yes, these guys feel big. It feels bigger than Fastlane. It's exactly what should have happened, and probably because Cena's involved. What they've done is they've taken both men to limits. We've seen things from both men that we didn't see on the build-up to Fastlane. Cena locking in the STF until Rusev passes out, dousing him in water, then locking it in again. Rusev and Lana, they seem to be deteriorating. We haven't seen her on TV since she gave Cena the match. Rusev, locking in Cena on the announce table, completely destroying him on the go-home Raw until Cena, again, passes out. It's been an escalation of the violence from Fastlane, and it feels big, Cena feels like an appropriate character to wrap himself in the American flag and go off against the foreign menace because he's basically, another Hulk Hogan, and that's exactly what Hulk Hogan's deal was. So yeah, this feels like a recycled USA versus Russia feud from the 80s, but in a good way. It feels like a throwback to its very simple but very effective booking. I mean, sure, there have been tiny regrets, like I don't know what the fuck deal was with the lawyer. I mean, was he supposed to be a fake lawyer? He was? Or wasn't he? Because JBL, who's a heel, was saying, oh, he's obviously fake. Whereas JBL, as a heel, should be buying everything that the heel's selling. But no, then Rusev also just wanted to read an anti-America statement, and then he was going to grant Cena the match, despite refusing the match a lot. And yeah, that didn't make any sense. But other than that, it's been a very solidly built, very physical... It feels big. And the US title has never felt more relevant, which is a good thing. Taker versus Wyatt. There's something cool about the fact that the Undertaker was last seen at WrestleMania 30, and the first time we're going to see him since then is WrestleMania 31. There's something really nice about that. It makes him feel mythic. You know, the lightning bolt on the chair, that was a bit silly, but ultimately that's the sort of, you know, supernatural shenanigans that The Undertaker gets up to. Wyatt's been giving some amazing promos. I mean, the promo he gave on the Go Home edition of Raw was probably his career's best. It was fucking spectacular. Find it on WWE.com, I'm sure they've put it up. I'm not arguing that it's been a problem that The Undertaker hasn't been seen. I'm arguing that the only regret I have with the build of this feud is the fact that it's been only promos. That Wyatt hasn't done any wrestling at all. It's just that every Raw he's gone to the, you know, black room with the smoke machine and talked like this, man. And talked about being the new face of fear. All the promos have started to sound the same, which dilutes the power when he actually gets out in front of the audience and does a big promo like the one he just did or the one he did at Fastlane, because we've seen too many promos. What we need to do is see Wyatt get a huge string of victories. He needs to beat everyone on the roster, and he dismantles them with viciousness and ferocity, you know, something that induces, say, fear, and allows him to say, I am becoming the scariest dog in this yard. Undertaker, your day is done. I am the person they fear now. And have him prove that in the ring, not just on promos, because it feels weak, it feels emptier. That being said, I'm excited about the match, but think how much more I would be excited if all you've seen is Wyatt tearing through the rest of the roster. Triple H versus Sting. This doesn't feel huge to me, and it should feel huge. First of all, it's probably because I never really watched WCW. I was always a WWE guy, so I didn't actually know that much about Sting. And to be honest, a lot of the casual viewers won't either. Sting was around 14 years ago, if, you know, people weren't watching TNA, and who really does on the casual WWE market? No, it feels, you know, like very late in the game. Don't worry, it's still exciting because Sting is obviously a big player, but I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good that finally Sting came out and said, I'm not fighting for WCW, that would be ridiculous, but it feels too little too late. The storyline's already been slightly confusing, WWE versus WCW, which is 14 years too fucking late. Also, what's been made worse is the fact that Triple H looks ridiculously weak going into this feud. At some point, Triple H had needed something to exert his physical dominance. Like last year when he was booked against Daniel Bryan, he had that wonderful segment where he handcuffed Bryan's hands behind his back and just kicked the shit out of him. He looked dangerous and sadistic. He's not had a chance to do anything near that this year. And this is supposed to be for higher stakes because he's even more corrupt or something like that. No, every single time Triple H has been humiliated and outclassed by Sting at every turn. Triple H got Booker T in the ring, and it looked like he was going to either kick the shit out of him or fire him, and he did neither. What the fuck? Like, on the Go Home Raw, it looked like he came out, he had the sledgehammer, it looked like finally Sting was going to get some sort of comeuppance for everything he'd been doing to Triple H, and he just walked away. I understand that you want to leave the physical stuff for Sunday, but you need to make Triple H look dangerous. You need to make it look like there's actually going to be a two-sided match. Otherwise, it just looks like a Legends coming in for a one-off squash match against Triple H and then leaving again. Plus, nothing's been explicitly put on the line. I mean, Sting's talked about in a very weirdly voiced vignette about how he wants to bring down the authority. But how's he going to do that? By beating up Triple H? Triple H has been beaten up before. It doesn't matter. Like, Triple H hasn't put his position in power on the line or his stake in the company, and Sting hasn't put his career or anything, or his eligibility to be in like the Hall of Fame or anything like that on the line. Like, nothing's really up for grabs. All they're going to do is have a fight. That's really it. And don't get me wrong, this feud still has star power, but ultimately it's been weakened by an ineffectual villain, a confusing hero, and no real stakes. Speaking of not feeling big when they should, Lesnar versus Reigns. Now, don't get me wrong, with happening, obviously the match feels a lot more unpredictable and there's a lot more excitement going in. Basically, if it hadn't been for Paul Heyman, this feud would have tanked fucking dreadfully. Paul Heyman's been giving some of his career best promos. You know, you can't beat my beast is brilliant. And the promo he gave on the final segment of the Go Home Raw was great, even though that will probably be overshadowed by the now infamous Tug-O-War. Yeah, and speaking of, what has Reigns done in this feud? Now, Lesnar doesn't really need to do anything because he put on that match at Royal Rumble and all he needs to do is hold up the title and let fucking Heyman speak for him. But Reigns needs to step up and he's not really done that. I mean, he's come out, chatted to Paul Heyman, he's chatted to the crowd by himself, he said, I can, I will, believe that. You know, he's got a brand new snazzy t-shirt, but he's not actually gotten into any sort of physical confrontation with Brock Lesnar. Look at Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk. That feud was immeasurably helped by the fact that Brock Lesnar came out and manhandled Punk, then Punk snuck up on him and got in with the camera. I mean, it looked great. These guys were really bringing it to each other, and the blood was boiling. Whereas now, is that Reigns just looks petulant. He looks like he's stamping his feet saying, people told me that I can't do it and I can, and if they say I can't, I'm gonna steal the belt because that's how I'll show them. And then they have a little tug of war, like two boys fighting over a train set, and it's rubbish. No one threw a punch. It's not enough that they're not at like Brock Lesnar is sort of mythical enough to not get into a violent kind of thing, but Reigns isn't. Reigns needs to be brawling. He needs to be showing how exciting he can be physically. It's not enough to have them, you know, stand apart from each other and never fight, because that will be, oh my God, the tension. No, because people aren't that invested in Roman Reigns' shot at the title. So yeah, the biggest regret is that there's been no real boil. So it makes perfect sense for me to have Lesnar retain, because, yeah, even the WWE don't feel like they're ready to commit to Reigns at this point. He should have come out and given a huge go-home speech to the troops. You know, I'm the babyface, and this is what I'm going to do at WrestleMania. I'm going to take that title, and this is for everyone. Believe that. But he didn't. And is that because the WWE don't think he can hold his own on the mic with Paul Heyman in the ring? Maybe. But then that's a huge problem if he's their number one guy. Or maybe they knew that they were getting Brock Lesnar to re-sign his contract and thought, fuck, we need to distance Reigns from a possibility of him winning, so they just made him look as ineffectual as he possibly could in the last segment. I don't know what happened, but that sure as hell the impression they gave. So yeah, don't get me wrong, there's a lot to look forward to at WrestleMania 31. You know, the IC title match is probably going to be great. You know, something great could happen with Damien Mizdow and The Miz. Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt could be a great match built on theatrics. Same with Triple H versus Sting. Hey, Brock Lesnar and Reigns, now that it's unpredictable, that could be great. All of these things have positive upsides. It's just there are a hell of a lot of what ifs. So, we'll be going into predictions, what I think is actually going to happen at WrestleMania in the next video to come. That'll be out in the next few days before Sunday, so stick around for that. For now, these have been the biggest regrets on the road to WrestleMania. I've been the posh guy who likes wrestling. Cheerio.